10 hours, 8 months pregnant, left to give birth alone. The baby kicks. Hard, right under Nola's ribs. A sharp, desperate little punch from the inside, like the child already knows what the mother refuses to accept, that no one is coming. The basement smells like concrete and old cardboard. A single bulb hangs from the ceiling, swaying just enough to make the shadows move. Rain hammers the small window above her head, the only window sealed shut with a padlock Luke installed 3 weeks ago. She counted the days. She counted everything now because counting was the only thing she could control. 10 hours. That is how long Nola Keene has been locked in this basement. 8 months pregnant. 31 years old. A woman with a law degree, a woman who once stood in courtrooms and made people twice her age sit up straight, now sitting on a cold concrete floor, back against a cracked wall, wearing the same white dress she had on when Luke walked her down the stairs and turned the key. He said it was for her own good. He said it with a smile. She had believed in this man with everything she had. And now she was here and the contractions were starting, not Braxton Hicks, not practice runs. Real, tightening in her lower back and spreading like fire across her abdomen. Real and coming faster. High viewers, if you have ever trusted someone completely, only to find out the person you trusted was the biggest threat in your life. Type, "I know," in the comments right now. And make sure you subscribe, because this story does not end the way Luke Veyron planned. The contraction breaks. Nola exhales through her teeth. She pulls her knees up and looks at the camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling. The red light blinks, steady, patient. Someone on the other end is watching. She stares directly into that lens. She does not blink. What Luke did not know, what he could not have calculated in any of his spreadsheets or backroom deals, was that the moment he locked that door, he had already lost. He just did not know it yet. And trust us, you will not believe what happens next. 3 weeks earlier, Nola had found the files on his laptop. Not by accident. She had been looking. Small things had added up over 18 months of marriage, whispered calls that stopped the moment she walked into the room, wire transfers she was not supposed to see, a folder labeled internal health data contracts sitting open on his screen when he forgot to close his office door one Tuesday morning. She opened it, she read every page. Luke Veyron had built a $340 million data company on the back of women's private health records, prenatal visits, fertility treatments, miscarriage histories. He had purchased the data from 3 medical management firms, stripped the names, and sold the profiles to insurance companies who used them to quietly deny coverage. He had been doing it for 6 years. He had paid 11 people to keep quiet about it. The documents listed every name. One of the names was Malik Duval, her father. Nola sat at that desk for 44 minutes before she moved. She did not cry. Her hands went cold. Her chest tightened like a fist was squeezing her lungs from the inside, but she did not cry. When she confronted Luke that evening, he looked at her the way someone looks at a minor inconvenience. Not angry, not afraid, calm. "The world doesn't care about them, Nola," he said. "It's just data." That was when she knew she had to get out. She started building her case quietly. She photographed documents. She emailed encrypted copies to a private server. She called her college friend Jess, who worked in investigative journalism, and left a coded message on her voicemail. She moved carefully, the way you move when you know you are being watched. But Luke moved faster. He had cameras everywhere. He had people inside her phone carrier. By the time Nola realized he knew what she was doing, he had already called his lawyer, frozen her access to every joint account, and had 2 of his security staff standing outside her bedroom door. The next morning, he told her she needed rest. He told her the basement was quiet and cool and good for the baby. His voice never changed. Smooth, even, pleasant. He took her arm. He walked her down the stairs. He turned the key. And upstairs in the security room, her father sat in front of 6 monitors and watched it happen without saying a single word. The contractions are 4 minutes apart now. Nola knows this because she has been counting seconds between each one, using the blinking red light on the camera as a metronome. 4 minutes, then 3.5. Her body is not asking permission anymore. It is moving forward without her. She pulls herself up using the metal shelving unit along the wall. Old boxes of Christmas decorations shift and nearly fall. She steadies herself, one hand pressed flat against the cold concrete, and breathes the way she taught herself to breathe during her prenatal classes. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow, controlled. Her dress is soaked through. She looks at the door at the top of the stairs. Solid, steel-reinforced. She already tried it twice. She already screamed until her voice cracked. Somewhere upstairs, through 2 floors of marble and soundproofing, she can hear the distant sound of music. Luke's charity gala is in full swing. Crystal glasses, string quartet, 200 guests in black tie. Her husband, charming and unreachable, moving through the crowd. The next contraction takes her breath clean away. She grabs the shelf with both hands and holds on. Her knuckles go white. A box of old photo albums falls and hits the floor, and pictures scatter, pictures of her at 7 years old, at 12, at her college graduation, her father's arm around her shoulders in every single one. Smiling, strong, proud. She stares at those pictures on the floor and feels something shift inside her. Not the baby, something deeper. She is not going to die in this basement. She is not going to let her child take its first breath on a concrete floor and then disappear into whatever story Luke had already prepared for the press. She had read enough of his contracts to know exactly how he handled loose ends. The contraction passes. Nola stands up straight. She wipes her face. She looks back at the camera. "I see you," she says quietly to whoever is watching. "And I want you to know I remember every single thing." Then another contraction hits, and this one does not stop. Jess Carter had been driving past the Veyron estate for 4 days straight. She had received Nola's coded voicemail 8 days ago, 3 words they had agreed on in college as their emergency signal, a joke that turned out not to be a joke at all. She had gone to the police. They had told her they could not enter private property on the basis of a voicemail. She had called Nola's number 47 times. Every call went to a recorded message in a voice that did not sound like Nola. On the 4th night, Jess parked her car on the service road behind the estate and climbed the fence. She was not a large woman. She was 5'4", 140 pounds, with a press badge and a recorder in her jacket pocket, and absolutely no plan. But she had known Nola Keene since they were 9 years old, and something in her body would not let her drive home. She found the basement window by accident, a small rectangle of light at ground level on the north side of the house, rain-streaked and barely visible through the hedges. She pressed her face against it and saw Nola on the floor, head down, both hands gripping the shelves. Jess did not scream. She pulled out her phone and called 911. "I need an ambulance and the police at 4 Whitmore Drive. A pregnant woman is locked in the basement. She is in active labor. This is not a domestic dispute. This is a kidnapping." She said it clearly, without shaking. Then she picked up a decorative stone from the garden border, pressed it against the corner of the window, and hit it twice until the latch cracked. She had 40 seconds before Luke's security team reached her. She used every one of them. "Nola," she pressed her mouth to the gap in the window. "Nola, I'm here. The ambulance is coming. You hold on. You hear me. You hold on." Nola, on the floor below, lifted her head. For the first time in 10 hours, she was not alone. But the front gate had just opened, and Luke's security team was running across the lawn. Luke Veron learned his wife was in labor the same way he learned most bad news, from an employee, via text, while he was laughing at someone else's joke. He excused himself from the gala without changing expression. His face did not shift. His posture did not change. He walked to the side hallway and called his head of security in a voice so quiet, so even, it barely registered as a human sound. "Remove the woman at the north window. Call Dr. Harmon and find out who she called." He had a plan for this. He had a plan for everything. Nola's emotional instability had already been documented. A private psychiatrist's report, signed and filed 2 months ago, citing pregnancy-related psychological episodes. Her access to their shared financials had been restricted under a wellness clause embedded in their prenuptial agreement. His lawyer had already prepared a statement for the press in the event of any public incident. He believed with full certainty that he had covered every exit. What he did not know was that at that exact moment, in the security room 3 floors above the basement, his father-in-law was on the phone. Malik Duval had sat in front of those monitors for 10 hours. He had watched his daughter labor alone. He had told himself it was not his place to intervene. He had told himself Luke would send the doctor eventually. He had told himself a great many things that all turned out to be lies he was telling himself. But then he heard Nola's voice through the monitor's audio feed. Just 5 words. "I remember every single thing." Malik Duval put down the glass of water in his hand. He picked up his personal phone. He dialed the one number he had not called in 11 years, his brother-in-law, a federal prosecutor. And in the basement, Nola's daughter was born. She did not name the baby right away. She held her small, furious, screaming at the cold, and wrapped her in the only thing available, a quilted moving blanket she pulled from the bottom shelf with one hand. She leaned against the wall and pressed her daughter against her chest and breathed. The ambulance arrived 7 minutes after Jess's call. The police arrived 4 minutes after that. Luke's security team had reached Jess at the window, but they had not touched her. One of them, a man named Roland who had worked the estate for 6 years, had looked through the cracked window at the woman on the floor and made a choice that would later save him from prosecution. He stepped back. He told his colleague to step back. He called the front gate and told them to let the ambulance through. When the EMTs came down the basement stairs and found Nola, she was upright, daughter in her arms, eyes open. She did not look like a woman who had just given birth alone in a locked room. She looked like a woman who had just won the first round. Luke appeared at the top of the stairs in his tuxedo, his voice smooth as glass, already telling the paramedics there had been a terrible misunderstanding, that his wife had been resting, that she had refused to go to the hospital earlier in the evening. And then he saw Nola's face looking up at him from the bottom of those stairs. And for the first time in the 11 hours since he had turned that key, his words stopped. "I have everything, Luke," she said. "Every file, every name, every number." One of the police officers stepped forward. Luke's lawyer would later say his client had cooperated fully. The footage told a different story. The lawsuit was filed 61 days after the birth. Not a divorce filing. A federal civil complaint, 43 pages, supported by 280 exhibits, naming Luke Veron, 3 of his executives, 2 data brokerage firms, and 1 Malik Duval as co-defendants in a conspiracy to unlawfully acquire and sell protected health data, affecting an estimated 1.2 million women across 14 states. Nola's attorney was a woman named Sandra Ose, who had spent the last 12 years winning cases that other lawyers said could not be won. The day the filing went public, Luke's company's stock dropped 34% in 4 hours. 3 of his board members resigned before noon. His charity gala sponsor, a cosmetics brand whose entire marketing platform was built around women's empowerment, released a statement before dinner. Luke released his own statement, through his PR team, calling the lawsuit frivolous and politically motivated. Nobody believed him, not anymore. But the war was not over, not even close. Because 3 days after the filing, Nola received a hand-delivered letter at Jess's apartment, where she and the baby had been staying. The letter was from Luke's attorney, and it contained a settlement offer. $12 million, full confidentiality clause, all court proceedings sealed. Nola read the letter once. She set it on the kitchen counter. She looked at her daughter sleeping in the bassinet by the window, small chest rising and falling, fingers curled into tiny fists. She picked up her phone and called Sandra Osai. "I want to see him in open court," she said. "Every word, every exhibit, every name in public." Sandra was quiet for a moment. "That's what I hoped you'd say." Malik Duval took the stand on the 3rd day of the trial. He was 62 years old, gray at the temples, a man who had built his reputation on 40 years of corporate finance and community board memberships. He sat in that witness box and looked at his daughter across the courtroom, and the distance between them was not measured in feet. Nola looked back at him without blinking. Under oath, Malik confirmed that he had been receiving payments from Luke's data operation for 9 years. He confirmed that he had been present in the security room the night of the birth. He confirmed that he had watched. He confirmed that he had not called for help. The courtroom was very quiet. When Nola's attorney asked him why, Malik opened his mouth and closed it twice before anything came out. "I convinced myself it was temporary," he finally said. "That Luke would send the doctor, that she was stronger than I was giving her credit for." "She was," Sandra Osai said. "No further questions." What happened next changed the course of the trial. On the 4th day, Marcus Reed, Luke's most senior executive, the man who had managed the data contracts for 6 years and had reportedly been pressured into silence with a $4 million bonus, walked into the courthouse with his own attorney and asked to amend his testimony. He had brought a hard drive. Luke's legal team asked for a 3-day recess. The judge denied it. The hard drive contained 6,400 internal communications that proved Luke had personally authorized every transaction, personally reviewed the health data categories being sold, and personally approved the targeting of women in pregnancy or undergoing fertility treatment, because those profiles commanded the highest premium. The courtroom did not stay quiet after that. The verdict came in on a Thursday. Liable on all counts. $47 million in compensatory damages. An additional $180 million in punitive damages. One of the largest awards in a health data privacy case in U.S. history. Luke Veyron's company was ordered into immediate receivership pending a federal criminal investigation. His passport was flagged at the request of the Department of Justice before he reached the parking lot. Nola was standing on the courthouse steps when the verdict was read to the press. She was wearing a navy blue dress, her daughter strapped to her chest in a baby carrier, eyes open and watching the sky. Jess stood to her left. Sandra Osai stood to her right. A reporter pushed a microphone toward her. Nola looked into the camera for a long moment. "This was never just about me," she said. 1.2 million women had their most private information sold without their knowledge. Most of them will never know it happened. This verdict is for them. She paused. Luke thought the basement would break me. What he didn't understand is that I didn't find my strength down there. I brought it with me. The clip ran on every major news network by that evening. By midnight, it had been viewed 14 million times. Malik Duval entered a guilty plea the following week. He received a suspended sentence and 3 years of supervised release in exchange for his full cooperation with federal investigators. He and Nola did not speak for a long time after that, but she did not cut the door completely. She left it an inch open. Some wounds needed space before they could be anything else. Luke Veyron was formally charged with 11 federal counts 2 months later. He faced a minimum of 18 years. His lawyer said he planned to fight every charge. No one who had seen that courthouse footage was surprised. 14 months after the verdict, Nola Keene stands in front of a room of 200 women. The room is bright, clean, a conference center in downtown Atlanta with good lighting and full seats and a banner on the wall that reads the Keene Foundation, because your health data is yours. She built this organization with $3 million of her own settlement before she spent a single dollar on anything else. It operates in 8 states. It has helped 40,000 women understand their data rights, dispute unlawful disclosures, and access legal resources they did not know existed. Her daughter, Zara, is 13 months old. She is with Jess today, 1 row back from the front, sitting in Jess's lap and chewing on a fabric book with great focus and no interest in her mother's speech. Nola looks out at the room. "People keep asking me what it felt like in that basement," she says. And the honest answer is, it felt like the end. It felt like I had run out of options, run out of time, and there was nothing left between me and the floor. She pauses. But here is what that night taught me. The floor is not the end of the story. Sometimes the floor is just where you find out who you actually are. There is silence, and then the room starts to clap, and it does not stop for a very long time. After the event, Nola sits in a corner chair, Zara in her arms, and goes through her phone. There is a message from Sandra Osai. Luke's legal team has filed a motion to postpone trial proceedings. Sandra's response to the motion was 2 words: motion denied. There is a message from Marcus Reed, who has been quietly cooperating with a second federal investigation into 2 other companies using the same data model. His message is brief. Found 4 more. Sending documents tonight. There is a message from a number she does not recognize. She almost ignores it, but something makes her open it. "My name is Dr. Patricia Wren. I was one of the physicians whose patient data was sold through Luke Veyron's network. I found out 3 weeks ago. I have been looking for you since. I have access to 12 years of internal records from the medical management side that no one has ever seen. I think together we could do something much bigger than one trial." Nola reads the message twice. She looks at Zara, who has stopped chewing on her book and is now looking up at her mother with wide, steady eyes. Nola types 3 words back. "When can we meet?" She sets the phone down and pulls her daughter close. Outside the window, Atlanta glows in the early evening light, full and warm and wide open. Not an ending. A beginning. Because the woman Luke Veyron, locked in a basement, never stopped being a lawyer. And the case she is building now is so much bigger than him. He thought locking that door would silence her. It gave her everything she needed to speak. If this story moved something in you, share it with one person who needs to hear it today. Every share puts this story in front of someone who might be sitting in their own basement right now. Not a concrete room, but a situation that feels like there is no way out. Your share could be the moment they realize they are not alone. Comment below, what was the moment in this story that hit you the hardest? We read every single one. And if you believe that truth always finds a way to the surface, You belong here. Subscribe and stay with us. You are not what was done to you. You are what you choose to build after.